What an epic shot. We had enjoyed some hiking and outdoor adventures in the Escalante area, and Daedalus, my Mavic Air 2, was there to catch lots of great aerial footage. However, as you already expect from the video title, this one didn't end quite so well. Let's look at it again from the top. So once the rotation is dialed in, we see my friends Sean and Chris remaining relatively still within the frame as the background spins around quickly behind them. But at this point, you'll notice he starts to drift significantly toward the right of the frame. Things aren't looking good for Daedalus. Sean sees impending doom and shouts to me, but it's too late. Daedalus has crashed and is now free-falling over 150 feet straight down. But why did this happen? Let's review the flight record. Here's the GPS flight record from that maneuver, sped up around 4 times. You can see my manual flying started to drift out of round, which is why Sean drifted so dramatically to the right as we saw earlier. This is a perfect example of how using the DJI quick shots could have helped avoid a collision. If I'd flown a circle here, the radius would have stayed intact. If a helix, then the elevation would have been built into the maneuver as the drone spun around Sean, and the top of this cliff would have easily been avoided. And crash. But that can't fully explain how Daedalus got here, so let's back up and see what the video reveals. Right before impact, where am I? Just out of sight. Another mistake. Here I am at the point where Sean began to drift. Let's zoom in. Uh-oh, I was distracted. This is too complicated a maneuver to worry about showing the live feed over my shoulder, especially given the blind spot and having made the assumption that my friends were atop the highest point. Definitely my mistake. Well, at this point, what's done is done, and now Daedalus is lying at the base of this cliff. You could easily see by looking over the edge from where they were standing, but even though I'd scrambled my own way up there after the crash, I'm not great with peering down from heights and took their word for it. Chris volunteered to retrieve the wreckage if he found it doable, so the plan was to go down to the hill and park at a coffee shop, where he would traverse his way back to the site and recover the drone. Thankfully, I also had Icarus, a DJI Mini 2, along for the weekend. I flew him out to keep an eye on Chris in case he got himself into trouble. Knowing I'd be able to begin flashing lights and beeping with Daedalus if he wasn't too far gone altogether, Chris is asking here for me to kick off the locator beeping. It's not terribly loud, but helps when you're nearby. From here forward, you'll notice 2 additional thumbnails on screen. In the lower left is the uncropped original footage from Icarus, and at the upper right is the synchronized GPS flight data with satellite overlay. Going to speed through much of this. Here we go. We soon realized from here I wasn't able to get a remote connection to the Mavic Air 2, so I brought Icarus back in, and Sean and I went back up the hill to fly surveillance from atop the lookout point and hopefully get a connection to start flashing and beeping. Descending now from the original spot, and here's Chris already having made his way around to the lookout cliff. Speeding up. Okay, now he's right on the spot. Here's the blinking aircraft LED I attached to the top of my drones for flight. And there's Daedalus. The gist of our conversation here from atop the cliff is Chris asking how much needs to be recovered and what's broken off or is otherwise missing. Most of this recovery footage was shot primarily to keep an eye on Chris, so exposure settings are taking a back seat. However, after he's made the recovery and seems to be out of the woods, my cinematic habits kick back in and I consider panning back to see where he's come from. Then I quickly gather my head again and focus back on him. Like a boss. Thanks, Chris.